and welcome to Supporting Inclusive Practices in Action, a multi-district SELPA approach presented by the East Valley SELPA, San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, Rialto, Yucaipa, Calamasa, Rim of the World, Colton Joint, and Redlands School Districts. I'm Kevin Schaefer, SIP Director of Inclusive Practices, and I'm thrilled to be your moderator for this breakout session. First, a few logistics. The session will be archived on the conference agenda page after the on the bottom will provide access to the Spanish translation. We will ensure the ASL interpreters are spotlighted along with the PowerPoint and presenter. Please make sure your volume is muted to avoid background distractions while presenters are speaking. We encourage you to engage with others in the chat and, when possible, keep your camera on so we can see your beautiful faces. And with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Patty Metheny.
Thank you, Kevin. Good morning, everyone. As Kevin said, I'm Dr. Patty Metheny, the Chief Administrative Officer for the East Valley SELPA here in San Bernardino County. In a few minutes, I will introduce my team members to share about our inclusion story. But first, I want to reflect on the term inclusion and to tell you a little bit about how we started on this journey. True inclusion is that sense of belonging that resonates without being called out. You just feel it. It is being comfortable to be your natural self. It is being accepted so that you thrive. What allows a child to feel she belongs in a classroom, on a campus, in a school? How does this magic happen? The East Valley SELPA began this journey of achieving inclusion for students with disabilities in the fall of 2020 as the recipient of a small SIP grant. At the time, I reflected on how best this small grant could impact the almost 11,000 students with disabilities in our SELPA. It was a small amount of money with the potential to make a very big impact. I knew the effort required collective impact with a focus on equity. That was my vision. And so I brought together district, county, SELPA, and SIP leaders, both from general education and special education. And the East Valley SELPA SIP leadership team was formed and quickly embraced my vision. Some of our current team members who you will hear from today are pictured on the next two slides. So we'll take a look at them. There we go. Thank you. They include myself, Jennifer Brooksby, who is the East Valley SELPA Program Manager, Dr. Cherina Betters, our Chief of Equity for the county schools, Jim Stolze, who is currently the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources in Yucaipa, Calamasa, and had been the Executive Director for Special Education, Rob Pearson, our Director of Special Education from Colton Joint Unified. And we'll move forward and you'll meet Patty Buckmiller, the Executive Director for Students or for Special Services in Redlands Unified School District. Jennifer Johnson, new to our team, who is also an Executive Director for Special Education in Rialto. Shannon Hansen, again, new to our team, who is currently an Assistant Superintendent for Rim of the World School District. Dr. Scott Wyatt, who is an Area Coordinator for San Bernardino County Schools in our East Valley. And Leslie Burkhart from Yucaipa, Calamasa, the Executive Director of Special Education there, who unfortunately cannot be with us this morning, but we have Jim Stolze from Yucaipa who will be filling in for her. The SIP project vision is for every student to be educated in an environment that is intentionally designed, equitable, and inclusive. This is a mighty vision, and we have a mighty educational leader to begin telling our story. Dr. Cherina Betters, a longtime friend of mine and the current Chief Officer for Equity and Access for the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, will share how we began to bring that mighty vision to life. Cherina.
Thank you, Dr. Metheny. Great to be here with everybody. Next slide, please. As we began to do this work, and Patty talked about the vision that she had for this and how inclusive she wanted to be and to ensure that every inch of our school community was able to be a part of the process. What was brought to the attention and what we began to dive into was a book. And this book really gave us an interesting dichotomy to really understand that it's more than just policy. It's also about the culture that exists. So in other words, you can change policy. You can write words. If the culture does not change the experiences that children are having in schools, that families are having in schools, that school leaders, teachers are having in schools, classified staff, then we can never change the process of schooling. We can never change the feel. We can never achieve that high level that Dr. Metheny just talked about that sense of belonging. Next slide, please. So one of the key pieces for me and the work that I have the opportunity to lead across our great county is the understanding that in order to change results, to go from the experiences that we initially are having that have long been a part of our historical experience, we have to begin to change the beliefs. And when you change beliefs, you change attitudes. And when you change attitudes, you get different results. So the challenge and the tension exists between changing what we have currently to what we would like to have our desired state. And to change a desired state, it's not just, again, policy, it's about culture. So by attacking the notion of what it feels like to exist within a given space, we hope that this thing that we're doing here that Patty alluded to, that was a creation and a vision, becomes not just something that's limited to East Valley SELPA, but goes across our state and across our nation. Next slide, please. So the key to culture and unraveling culture, and it's a very sophisticated thing. It's not nuanced, but it's so variegated because every individual person brings a certain element of culture. But it was begin to have this understanding, and this is what we did as part of this SIP process, is to begin to have this understanding that it's not about fault. It's not about assessing blame, assigning blame. It's about taking responsibility for kids who are under our care, taking responsibility for the adults who are under our care, because we are all one school community. Next slide, please. So to really conclude my piece of this puzzle, this has revolutionized my way of thinking. It has revolutionized the way I see dimensions of difference. And although we're talking specifically about students with exceptional needs in this space, each and every person, we have to begin to move away from these notions of inclusivity that don't include the understanding, the undergirding that every single person needs to feel like they belong. In order to feel like they belong, we got to change the experience. And as soon as we change the experience, we change the beliefs. And when we change those beliefs, then you guys, we get a whole different result. And that's the goal. And with that, Dr. Metheny, I'm going to hand this back over to you. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, Cherina. Clearly your passion makes equity and inclusion real for our students, for our families, and for the educators we work with. And so you may recall that 2021 was the year of COVID. And so our Buck study took place as we dealt with that, and it came to an end, and we moved out of COVID and had students returning to our campuses. And then during these past 2 years, we have been able to focus on operationalizing those goals to change our culture, to move to culture C2. And we focused on building capacity for implementation. And now the East Valley SELPA Program Manager, Jennifer Brooksby, will share with you the progress we have been making, as will our district leaders. Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Patty. In this building and implementing phase, as we've come back out of COVID and we're ready to hit the ground running, as a SELPA, we have focused on building the capacity of our teachers, our paraprofessionals, and our administrators, general education and special education alike, to not only understand the why behind inclusion, but to actually do it. And so often we hear from our staff that they want training and they need training in order to be able to actualize the things that they've learned. And so that's exactly what we've done. Our SIP leadership team has planned events and professional development that are designed to break down barriers and really put strategies into the hands of our classroom teachers immediately. The SELPA professional development has shifted over the course of the 22-23 school year because of the nationwide shortage of substitute teachers. So we have taken our what were previously trainings that might happen offsite, and we brought them into our districts, and we've collaborated with the district leaders to actualize those trainings inside the classrooms. This was designed to build the capacity of the district leaders, the program specialists, the coordinators, the special education directors, and also strengthen the skill set of district staff who come alongside and are actually doing the work with the students. They are the boots on the ground. Each of our districts has built some form of an equity or an inclusion committee that champion the focus of inclusion for all students, but particularly for our students with disabilities. These might be district-wide or site-based, depending on our LEA. Most of our LEAs have taken key district stakeholders on visits to other districts or charter schools that are models of inclusion throughout Southern California, so that their staff can observe in real time what different examples of inclusion might look like. What has generated from this is really meanthroughout conversations when staff have returned about current practices and how they can continue to grow. Throughout the SELPA, we have examples of inclusive classrooms that range all the way from preschool through high school. I'm just going to stop my presentation just for one moment and ask that anyone that is attending, please make sure that you are on mute. I think it's difficult for our Spanish and ASL interpreters to be able to navigate things. Thank you so much. It's not to say that our classrooms throughout the East Valley SELPA are 100% inclusive or that we've figured out everything, because if we had, we could market it and probably all retire. But what we're doing is we're starting those seeds. Sometimes districts have preschool classrooms that are inclusive. Sometimes it's a high school classroom. Other districts in our region are really, really good at the middle school levels, but we are opening those doors to what inclusion can look like at a variety of grade levels. And lastly, let me advance the slide. The East Valley SELPA is thrilled about this opportunity that we have. We have partnered alongside Ventura County SELPA to do a multi-year professional development opportunity. And I don't think that the names Katie Novak and Shelley Moore are new to anyone who's attending this conference, but this is designed to push the boundaries of what we think inclusion really is. They have called this the moral imperative to inclusion, and I think we deeply feel that. We've done several virtual sessions over the course of the last year and a half, and the capstone event is taking place next week. Katie and Shelley will be here in Ventura, and then they're coming to the East Valley SELPA. They will do in-person professional development, and then they are going out into our school sites. They will have the opportunity to observe many of the successes that we have, and then also offer guidance and coaching and suggestions on how we can improve and kind of spread the wealth of what we're doing into more of our spaces. So what we're going to do at this phase is give our districts an opportunity to share what they are doing in each of their LEAs. And Rob Pearson will be talking to us about the exciting events that are taking place in the Colton Joint Unified School District.
Thank you, Jennifer, and good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here and be a part of this amazing group and amazing movement, if you will. And just to start out, a few years ago, I heard Anthony Shriver, who's of the Kennedys and created Best Buddies and Special Olympics, helped to create that. he said something profound that I'll never forget, and that is politicians and people with lots of money are not going to change this world. What's going to change this world is our kids who have an inclusive mindset. And I truly believe that. I live every day of my life with that. Those will be the ones who deal with our big issues in our country. In Colton, we're a community. We have 19,000 students, and we're unique in that we have 3 distinct communities, Bloomington, Colton, and Grand Terrace. We're one of the oldest cities, if not the oldest city in Southern California Inland Empire. So we have a unique culture. And so in Colton, we have developed a SIP group. This is a group that is comprised of a variety of stakeholders within our district. And the idea is to have a thought partner group to think about how we can increase inclusive practices, as well as finding some things that we can do, that we can implement and be successful with that. And so the group is looking at developing action plans to do a variety of different things. Our motto, some frown upon this, and I struggle with this concept, but our motto is go slow to go fast, because we want to do fast work, but we want to do methodical work as well, and ensure that our students receive, and we have systems that provide support and include all of our students. So that group is driving our work. A unique thing in Grand Terrace is that in Colton, is that we created from the grassroots a co-teaching model at one of our high schools, Grand Terrace High School. Our teachers got together, they were excited, they've gotten training, and we've facilitated that training from the outside, and it really was a grassroots effort that we're cultivating and hopefully will be expanding. So we're really focused on that in ensuring that our students have access to rigor in general education classrooms, and they're not separate and segregated from their typical peers. We're also ensuring that our students with extensive needs are included in our physical education classes. Some districts, this is not an issue, but in our district, we are moving towards ensuring all students, and especially those students with extensive needs, are receiving things like PE and other things alongside typical peers. So we have a group working on that. We have a thought partner and a consultant helping us. So those are a few of the exciting things we are doing in Colton. Next, I will hand it over to my colleague, Patty Buckmiller from Redlands Unified School District.
Awesome. Thank you, Rob. I'm Patty, and I'm excited to share with you some of the things that Redlands has been doing. And really, we've had just a vision that has come from our top, from the cabinet level and the school board level, and have just really made inclusion a focus for us. And so also doing committee work, like Rob had mentioned, we have an overarching district committee that is TK through age 22 that really started a year ago. And they were looking at things like the least restrictive board policy that hadn't been updated since sometime in the 90s. We're looking at how we're actually going to roll this out, and all just little policy and procedure type things. That committee is now morphing into an ongoing committee that will also include parents. And our first meeting of the new revised committee is actually meeting next week. From that district committee, we have 2 offshoots. One is our elementary focus group, and then we also formed a secondary focus group. But I want to take my time today just to talk a little bit about our elementary plan, because that is, I think, where when Rob talks about going slow to go fast, we have decided just to rip the Band-Aid off. And we are actually, we are dissolving our mild mod classes, and students are returning to their home schools for next school year, and going to attend classes with support, SAI support, of course. So I just want to talk a little bit about the plan for that. So for the 23-24 school year, we are looking at students in grades TK through 2, and they'll be returning to their home schools. And then the following school year for 24-25, we'll have our students in grades 3 through 5 will then return to their home schools as well. We are keeping separate classes. This has been a big discussion for us. We decided to keep separate classes, but they'll be moderate or extensive needs. And we've put the district into geographical pods, where each pod of 4 schools will have an extensive needs class and a moderate class supporting the students in that smaller pod, so that they can stay close to home. It's going to reduce busing also, because right now we are transporting students all over the place across the city, and we have some students of our special ed students that are on the bus for upwards of 3 hours a day, which is not acceptable. We also have started out this school year with a pilot. And so before I was in this position, I was an elementary principal. And so that site was a logical choice for a site. So Crafton Elementary is where we're doing our pilot. And so we are doing it with TK through K. And I have a little video for you that you can come back and see as well. So Jennifer, if you can cue up our video, we'll take a quick look at our Crafton pilot.
Summarizes program is just giving all students the equal opportunity to be in a general education class with their peers, learning the same things, having access to the same curriculum and the same structure, and just being able to benefit from positive models in their classrooms.
You know, it helps all the kids build mindfulness and, you know, respect to each other. At such a young age, it's really valuable. It's also really beneficial to see, you know, kids working alongside kids with differences.
I will be completely honest, when I was told I would be in the inclusion pilot program, I was a little bit nervous, but it has been super exciting seeing some of these kids grow.
I love seeing the kids making positive interactions with each other, socializing together, and hearing some of our kids that have speech issues are finally talking, and it is absolutely wonderful to see.
What is the responsibility of the gen ed teacher? What is the responsibility of the SPED teacher when I come in for that hour and a half to 2 hours every day? Like, is there something specific I should be doing? Because in every classroom right now it looks different. Because we're still figuring it out.
We're still figuring what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. How do we make those decisions? Like anything new, you're going to have nerves, you're going to have growing pains, you're going to have great days, and you're going to have horrible days. But in the end, the kids are making growth, and that's what matters.
And it is a beautiful thing. I like when we get to talk to some of the parents about the successes we're seeing, and seeing just the parents take a big sigh of relief and going, wow, my kid's doing it.
PK is the best, and kindergarten is the best time for it, to give these kids an opportunity to be included in everything. Playing together, pretend play, learning, songs, all the good stuff that little kids need.
I can't see the end of that and not smile, because that's just amazing. Okay, so a couple of questions in the chat too, and I just want to say that the mindset piece has been huge, and it's not just something that just happens overnight. So we have really been working on the mindset piece. We went out to every elementary school and did a roadshow that the committee put together, and it was really the why behind inclusion, and the support that we're going to give, the training, like all the pieces are there, and just I think with teachers understanding the why and involving our union groups as well has been super critical to what we're launching. And then we've done a book study I'm just going to show you, which you cannot see. There's a book, I'll put it in the chat. It's called Your Students, My Students, Our Students. And it's Rethinking Equitable and Inclusive Classrooms. That mindset piece has been so important for us. It was free for teachers, but it's sold out because we have 100 spots to do the book study, and it's sold out in 2 hours. And so when you're thinking of doing something like that, that's after school on their own time, that teachers like have a need and they want to hear about this. And it was 75% gen ed teachers and 25% special ed teachers that attended our book study. So I agree with the comments in the chat about, like, we have to think about the mindset piece of the gen ed teachers, but it's the right thing to do for kids. And that has just been our message all along. So I'm just excited to share it with you. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Rialto and the lead agent there, Jennifer Johnson. Let's hear about Rialto.
Thanks, Patty. I'm Jennifer Johnson. I'm the lead special services agent for Rialto Unified School District. Thank you all for having me here. This is amazing hearing what all of our other colleagues are doing. Like so many others, we kind of took a fast pace and jumped all in, but have noticed during the process that we really needed to kind of circle back and do some of the slower shifting things that maybe weren't done initially. So that's definitely a learning curve that I wanted to share with everyone. But currently we have many inclusive school site locations, 4 preschool classes throughout the district, 11 elementary school sites. One of our middle schools and one of our high schools are currently engaging in inclusive practices and all a wide range of different variabilities. We have also done many coaching and inclusive practices, conferences. We, as many others, also visited the Chime school site location. That was an amazing opportunity. Highly recommend it, just to kind of see what's out there, what's going on. As well as developing just school site level task forces, if you will, in order to kind of continue. This has just really been more of a movement. And with the movement, we do see movement in both directions. Sometimes it's movement forward. Sometimes it's having to take a few steps back and reanalyze what we're implementing and how it's being implemented. And absolutely, just like as everyone's saying in the chat, there is a ton around the culture and the mind shift changes that need to happen or have happened. It also goes to say, I want to say it's not just a mind shift change for our special or our general education teachers. It's a mind shift change for our special education teachers. Meeting people where they are and just staying curious and asking questions for clarity has been a huge gift, if you will, of just kind of listening and staying curious, because it's really about being courageous and being brave, staying strong, and to be able to say things when we're a little bit uncomfortable with saying things. So as a leader kind of amongst this movement, it was super important to kind of think of ourselves as excavators and excavating those things that are unsaid and bringing them to the surface so that we can discuss them. Because it's not about people having bias. Everyone has bias. It's just about how many we have and how deep they run in order to bring them out. And those conversations get a little uncomfortable. And we need to just get to a place where we're okay with that uncomfortability, because that is the sign, like the key sign, that uncomfortableness of movement. And movement is that's what we're wanting to happen in this movement towards inclusion. So when we're feeling that, not to stray away from it, it's the definition of privilege to sit in comfort. So we don't want to continue to sit in comfort. We have to get uncomfortable in order to have this movement happen, and lead in that capacity, continue to excavate and get us out of that to change individuals' mindsets, change our own mindsets, and learn from one another. Because it's been very eye-opening to hear from not just general education staff, as well as special education staff on their beliefs and what they think in regards to having students who are fully included. And it is definitely growth that needs to take place on both sides. So I feel like we've made leaps and bounds, but there's still such a far journey to go. But we're super proud in Rialto for the movement that has been made and will continue to grow, and are excited to share that with anyone else. So I appreciate the time being able to come here and share with others and learning from so many others as well. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Assistant Superintendent of the Rim of the World, Mr. Shannon Hansen.
Thanks, Jennifer. Good morning, and thanks for having me. I just, first of all, want to say thank you to East Valley SELPA for my first year with East Valley SELPA, and it is truly a family, and it is a vision that we all share, and we are honored to have you as our leader as we go through this journey to inclusion. So thank you, Jennifer and Patty and all the staff over at East Valley SELPA. I am brand new to Rim of the World School District, so I came in with open eyes, just trying to figure everything out. We are a little bit different than compared to the rest of the East Valley SELPA districts. We are small. We have a total of 7 schools, and that includes our continuation and our virtual academy. So we are relatively small, and we are very much a community-based district. If you're not familiar with the Rim of the World, we stretch all the way from Crestline, Top Town, all the way over to Running Springs. It's the whole entire mountain area except for Big Bear. So we have a wide variety of mileage in between. So we have to, and each community is very, very different. And so we have to keep that in mind. So when I came into came into Rim of the World, the most important thing for me was to just introduce myself to the staff and understand what we're doing as a special education team across the board, and doing a site analysis. Where are we at? What are we doing? One of our schools, our junior high, started an inclusion model, and they kind of been working through the kinks, I would say, this year about it. So that was the first thing that we did, is just do a site analysis of each one. And then we started having that discussion with our stakeholders, our educational stakeholders, which includes, our students, our staff, our community, our family members, because we are changing the mindset of our community across the mountain. And we don't get a high amount of turnover. So we have to make sure that we are aware of their feelings of how we're delivering our message. So it's very important, as our good friend Rob said from Colton, it's okay to go slow to go fast. And so that's the model that we have dedicated here at Rim of the World. And it started out with a special education, just Q&A about inclusion. And I went to myself and a colleague of mine, we went to the staff meetings of our SPEDS team. And I said, bring it on. I'll answer any questions I can. And if I don't know the answers, I'll get it back to you. And that really helped develop the groundwork for our 3-year plan to introducing or expanding our inclusion model that's already been incorporated within Rim of the World School District, because we're doing some wonderful things already. We just haven't quite have a plan to guide it out, to share it out with our educational stakeholders. So that's the main thing that we started to do this year, is create a plan that allowed us to share out the message. And we started that with our board presentation. Then we went to our parent advisory board meetings and just shared out exactly what inclusion was. And one of the main concept was to change RSP, SDC, and et cetera, your tougher class, your extensive classes, to our SAI model, which is our SAI, low support, moderate support, and extensive support. And so that's been kind of a mind shift of, quote unquote RSP. I taught special education for a very many years, and it's RSP, SDC, self-contained. So we stopped labeling our students and incorporated them into the gender education classroom. And that I think that's been one of the major mind shifts of understanding that. And if you've been a special education teacher for many years, it's tough to, in general education teacher, it's tough to make that mind shift. So we started to do that, and it's going forward, and I'm excited about where we are going. One of the things that we did do at our MPH school, which is Mary Putnam Hank, it's our junior high school, we had a study skills class, and we still have a study skills class. However, we added AVID to our 6th grade. We expanded the AVID. So we're going to take the opportunity for our SAI students to be in our AVID classrooms instead of going into quote unquote study skills, because there you get your peer instruction from general education. You also get your AVID tutors and your AVID teachers, along with your special education teacher as well, or paraprofessional. So it's an inclusion model, and we're excited about bringing that into our 6th grade and moving that up to 7th and 8th grade, and understanding that our students deserve AVID, and if they want to go to AVID, they should go to AVID. And so that's we're going in that direction, and we're very, very excited about that. And the most important thing that myself, and I know Ms. Burke is on here, she's part of the team. Thank you, Ms. Burke, for being here. Our team is communication to our stakeholders. Parents are afraid, I don't know if afraid is the right word, but they're apprehensive about making this change just because they don't know yet. And we haven't explained it to them yet. So it's very important for us as a district at RIM And as a parent of four with a child on an IEP, we want to know what's going on, and just be transparent. If you ask us a question, if we ask you a question, give us an answer. And you may not like it, but just be transparent. So that's where we're going forward in a 3-year model. And our 3-year plan is will be shared out and continues to be shared out. We have our next parent advisory board coming up in a couple of weeks, and we're excited. And the other one thing that I do want to mention is that it's imperative that we keep the flexibility at our sites with a overarching district vision, because if at RIM, every site is different because they're in each town and every community is different. So you have to, in my opinion, just keep that flexibility amongst the sites with the overarching vision of the district. And so that's the direction that we are going at RIM of the World. Once again, I want to say thank you to East Valley SELPA for your guidance and being new to the team. And now I'd like to turn it over to my friend, Dr. Scott White from San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Just great information everybody's sharing today. Good morning. What a wonderful day this is. I mean, it's a huge day for us as we're starting with our mission of inclusion. And I also want to say Feliz Cinco de Mayo for those of you that are celebrating Cinco de Mayo today. And I've seen a lot of comments in the chat room and about folks buying in and about leadership. And they're saying, I always have, it says everything begins and ends with leadership. So I really want to give a big shout out with our paradigm shift as it started with Dr. Metheny and Dr. Brooks. They're the ones that really wanted to create this new culture and mind shift in East Valley and the districts we serve in a region with this common mission of inclusion. So, as we heard, that all started with us doing our book study together, which was really great, the Connors and Smith book study. And that's how it brought us together closer and really gave meaning behind what we were doing. For us as county schools, being a service provider to the districts in our region, we were able to engage in collaborative meetings with them that were purposeful, plan, and intent with inclusion in mind. Really wonderful relationship we have with our districts where our LEAs include our students in all kinds of different activities. It could be school assemblies, clubs. We have some that participate in the Cadet Corps, obviously in many, many celebrations. And we have students sometimes who get to read the morning and daily bulletin. Another area that we wanted to focus on within our own programs was the physical space needs. When evaluating our sites, we saw signage that was not inclusive, right? It would maybe be, classrooms 1 through 4 and then special ed classes over here, right? So that obviously was not inclusive just in the physical design and how we presented ourselves, along with fencing. Where we had fencing, sometimes that was not inclusive, actually segregated kids. And so we needed to say, no, that doesn't work. We heard about furniture already earlier, and then of course, accessibility. That also included our campuses and playgrounds, where we wanted to make sure we had safe, equitable access for all students. And our districts, again, have done a wonderful job of working with us and our students, giving us access to our sites. We have students that also participate in elective courses at some of our district sites, especially in the high school, which is very, very important for our kids that are working towards transition. And then our SBCSS staff, our county staff, have been participating in professional development through the SIP website, as well as internal PDs focused on equity, led by Dr. Betters, as we've met her earlier today. Thank you, Dr. Betters. And then also our own sites, as we include our students with disabilities in all events, all activities, and even our sports, which is really nice as well to have our kids participate in those. And then we have, like by May schools, our push-in services with our students with disabilities. I read in there, maybe getting some pushback by our general ed staff, but the way to overcome that, and we've overcome that, is with strong support from our special ed staff that go into their classrooms and assist them with instructing our students. One thing that we've worked hard on over here at the county is getting our teachers dual credentialed. Right, many of our teachers are dual credentialed, which obviously means they have a multiple subject and special ed credential, maybe a single subject and special ed credential, which also helps us with changing the conversation, right, and the culture and the mindset as we move our instructional programs towards our inclusive practices. And then lastly, I just want to talk about our San Bernardino County Superintendent Schools Countywide Equity Committee, which Dr. Betters and I are on as well, and that we'll be adding inclusion to our equity plan. So it is what we expect in all our programs countywide. And that is it for me. And I'll be handing it over to a good friend, our assistant superintendent from Yucaipa Calimesa School District, Jim Stolze. Good to see you, Jim.
Likewise, Scott, thank you for the introduction. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to the East Valley SELPA, in particular, Dr. Metheny and Ms. Brooksby, for just including me in this opportunity today. This is obviously super important work, the whole idea of inclusive schools and inclusive practices, and happy to contribute to that today. So I'm a stand-in on this first slide. My colleague, Leslie Burkhardt, who is our executive director of student services, was pulled away today for a student matter, so that makes sense. But let me share a little bit about what we're doing currently in Yucaipa Calimesa, and then I'll go on to my next piece. So just echoing some of the thoughts that were shared in the room earlier, we're doing many of the same things. In Yucaipa Calimesa, we started about 4 years ago with this idea of no longer having SDC classes in our elementary grades, starting with K1, and then as those kids matriculated up, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And kind of like Rob Pearson Colton said, going slow and being deliberate and careful as we did that. Not to say that it was perfect, but recognizing when you change things, people get uncomfortable when people move their cheese, right? So, you know, working with our special education teams, working with our general education teachers, our principals and our parents and all of that, it's been a gradual process, and we're happy with where we're at, but we're certainly, we haven't arrived. To give you an example, currently right now, we do not have any SDC classrooms in our elementary environment. So we're really proud of that. We do have some, I guess what we would call ED or behavior classes that we're still trying to have a more inclusive experience, but they aren't fully included, but we're working towards that. We've also recently, we do have a district preschool. And so we are just this year and last year, we have inclusive classrooms at the preschool level. It's really interesting when you see an inclusive classroom full of 3-year-olds. Kids are kids, right? And when they're 3, they're 3. And 3-year-olds tend to run around whether they have a disability or not. So it's just amazing getting to the place where we're comfortable with, let's start at the beginning in some cases and have an inclusive environment there. Definitely there's going to be hurdles and challenges, but we're working through that on our preschool level. Similar to other districts, we do have a district-wide committee. We call it a special ed coalition. That group is composed of special ed leaders, general education leaders, leaders from both of our bargaining units, certificated and classified, and district leadership. And what we're trying to do is, you know, sustain this momentum. We're trying to kind of get the mindset out there about what this is all about. We are doing visits to local districts that are doing things with inclusion that maybe we aspire to do, or going out to see Chime and things like that. I think one of our interesting takeaways is doing inclusion isn't a 4-year project. It isn't a 5-year project. I thought it would be a 10-year project. It's going to be a 22-year project, I think. Well, maybe forever project, I don't know. But I think that level of commitment is something that has dawned on us. These things that we're doing can't be flash in the pan kinds of things. This special ed coalition is probably something we're going to maintain in one way or another, because we need that. We need to keep that conversation going. Other things we're doing, we are continuing to partner with the East Valley SELPA, doing SIP trainings, things like that, kind of being a partner in that, trying to make ourselves better, looking at some co-teaching things. And one of the bigger things, and I'll touch about that a little bit on the next slide, is we're making the move to being sure all of our special education students are rostered to a general education class. I want to just emphasize that. It seems like maybe a small thing, but kids need to be included in the database too, not just in the classroom. It sounds maybe like a technicality, but it's not. There are systemic things built into the way we run schools, and when kids aren't on the roster, they're invisible. And so we've taken this huge proactive step that whether the child has a special education case carrier or not, they have a general ed seat someplace. So great segue. So let me talk about my slide. In my current role, I'm the assistant super for HR, and it's obviously a big, huge, challenging ball of wax, but I super appreciate my experience in special ed, because those of us who live in this world, most of you here this morning, it's so unique and it's so different, and you don't always understand, people on the outside don't always understand what this means. And so what I'm encouraging everyone to think about when you're thinking about inclusion is don't just think about the special ed world. Your folks in the central office, the business office, the human resources office, they may be 3 or 4 years behind you in what their exposure is or their level of thinking. I'm happy to hear that Patty Buckmiller and Redlands is giving that cabinet level direction. But I strongly encourage you to be sure when you're looking at your outreach efforts at the district level, be sure your district leaders know what's going on. In HR, they do staffing, right? And so how do you staff for an inclusion model? That's what the HR person wants to know. How do you do that? What are you supposed to do? How, are you having 2 teachers in a class? Where do your paraprofessionals go? There's obviously not one answer to do that. In Yucaipa-Calimesa, we started with, let's make sure they're rostered. In Yucaipa-Calimesa, we said case carriers provide a service, but teachers provide the classroom environment. And so shouldn't the kids be as much as possible in the general education classroom, but the services come to them? The other thing to think about when looking at the staffing is sometimes people assume if you do inclusion, you have to hire more special education teachers. The opposite is true. When you do inclusion, you have to hire more general education teachers, because for decades in California, special education students were put in those other classrooms that Dr. Wyatt was talking about with another teacher, and that was all special ed. So one of the epiphanies for us in Yucaipa-Calimesa is we may have to have a couple extra general education teachers because now those special ed kids are rostered to us. Another thing to realize is, and this is why I said maybe it's a 20-some year system, you can't, it's hard to do it all at once. I think we were pretty assertive in going a couple grade levels at a time, but you have to be deliberate and closely conscious of how things are working, because you don't want to break the system while you're changing the model. You don't want to create more problems by going too fast or missing a certain thing. The other thing I want you to think about, and this might not be a special education thought, but all of us have collective bargaining agreements. And just like an IEP, when you're looking through details in an IEP, there are details in the collective bargaining agreement that can really shape what type of inclusive practices you are permitted to do in your district. So if you haven't done that, or if you haven't cracked open the contract to see, what language exists about caseload? What language exists about class size? Or are there stipends or incentives or interesting things that might motivate or unmotivate someone to be in an inclusive setting? And I think it's important for us in special education to understand what those are. And of course, if things are a roadblock, perhaps the bargaining agreement, those come up for negotiations all the time, maybe new language or changes to the language. You need to entertain that, because I think as inclusion becomes more of a thing, one of the things that might pop up as a potential roadblock is, what does the contract say? So if you haven't looked at your contract, look at your contract. That's what I would say. And we're working through that with our units and a partnership with our 2 bargaining units, and it's going fairly well. And then I'll end with this, just some thoughts about challenges. I know some of those have been touched upon here already this morning. The mindset, the fixed mindset, the obsolete understandings. There's still people who think you have to have SDC classes. There are still people who think that because you get funding for a certain level of special education things, you have to have a separate class. It's not the case. Unfortunately, some of those mindsets are entrenched, but I think just working with them in partnership and talking through, well, could it be something else? And then helping them realizing that it doesn't have to be a certain way. It's really powerful. Some of us have talked about fear and pushback and things like that, and I think we've all encountered that. One of the things we've learned in Yucaipa-Calimesa is going slow and deliberate is part of it, but think about your initial IEPs. When we first qualify a child for special education services, whatever that service is, it'd be super intelligent to start with an inclusive mindset in mind from the very beginning. The first time we say we have to put a child in a separate classroom, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. Maybe you never say that at all in the beginning. Now, granted, students have complicated needs sometimes, and you may have to. But I would really encourage us as a special education group, start at the beginning. So we won't have pushback if parents know that the ways their child's needs can be met is if they're met from the beginning inside a general education classroom, not teaching our parents that their child has to go somewhere else. And then the last thing I'll end with this is, I think we all need to be cognizant that regression is part of this, right? And UCaipa Calimesa, we've taken 4 steps forward and then maybe 1 step back in some schools. I had a teacher the other day say, we need to have a class for those kids who aren't ready for general ed. Oh, that's interesting. I thought we had crossed that bridge already. So just be ready, because it doesn't mean something's wrong when someone asks that comment. It just means that the new mindset isn't ingrained yet. Someone said, well, we need to have a bridge class so that our littles are ready for kindergarten. I don't know about that. They're going to kindergarten. Let's make kindergarten ready for them, kind of thing. Anyway, I could talk forever. Patty, Jennifer, everybody here on this call, really appreciate being here. And so I'm going to turn it over to the person who's doing the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's exciting to hear all of the different practices that are happening throughout our SELPA. But the last thing that we want to share with you today is the East Valley SELPA United in Inclusion Ribbon of Inclusion Award. This is the brainchild of several committees: our Community Advisory Committee, our SIP leadership team, our steering committee, and even our board of directors have developed a recognition opportunity for our school sites that are demonstrating inclusion. Districts can nominate schools for one of 4 recognition levels, ranging from bronze all the way through platinum, based on where their school is in their journey to a more inclusive environment for students with disabilities. A school that is just starting out and maybe setting some site-based goals about what inclusion could look like, or working on that mindset shift, might be ready for our bronze ribbon. Whereas a school that has fully integrated their students and there has been a mindset shift and it kind of permeates through the veins of everybody there, that school might be ready for our platinum ribbon. The idea here is that schools can set goals to achieve this recognition that will serve as a motivator and an external validation of the work that they are already doing. We've developed rubrics for each of these levels as a guide to help the sites set goals and work toward making spaces where students feel a sense of belonging. When a site is prepared for the recognition, we conduct a validation visit that allows the site to showcase all of their achievements. Once those validation visits have been conducted, the school is invited to present at our SELPA board meeting, where they can be honored for the work that they have done. We are truly hoping that the East Valley SELPA Ribbon of Inclusion will be viewed as an honor for the work at one school and a motivator for other schools throughout our SELPA and our region to create more inclusive spaces so that we can see platinum level schools popping up all over. Thank you so much for joining us today as we shared our East Valley SELPA multi-district approach to inclusion. And Kevin, on behalf of the East Valley SELPA, thank you so much for the work that you do on our SIP leadership and for the opportunity to showcase what we're doing here in the East Valley.
The pleasure is certainly all ours. We do have one question. I think it's really important in the Q&A that I thought maybe we'd take just a couple minutes. The question that was asked is, what are some specific positive student outcomes you've seen come from this inclusion model implementation, both for students with and without special needs? What about specific positive teacher outcomes? Anybody want to tackle that?
I'll share. As part of our co-teaching approach, we're monitoring our students' grades. So these are students with disabilities in high rigorous courses that need support but are included. So we have increased our passing rate for our students at the high school level. And the other benefit is we have 2 teachers are coming together to deliver content and also provide supports, not only to students with IEPs. When you walk in these rooms, you will have no idea of who's who, right? But our students in general ed, who let's not forget, might need some support, right? So there's a benefit there as well. So those are 2 huge benefits where we see increased passing rate at the high school level, and 2 teachers coming together to deliver content in a multi sort of holistic approach to all students.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate the answer. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of our presenters for sharing the alignment across the entire system, from county to SELPA to districts, in supporting the vision as well as the actions that it takes to create meaningful, inclusive environments for all students. And I also wanted to thank everyone in attendance for your allyship to our students with and without disabilities, in addition to their families. It's our mission to grow our educational system to innovate, include, and impact outcomes positively for all, from birth to adulthood and beyond. All of this presentation slides and resources can be accessed in the session description section on the VFAIR's agenda page. You can also access the recorded videos from yesterday from the same agenda page. We've added the conference link to the chat. Please take a moment to provide the feedback about your overall experience and any suggestions for next year. Be sure to join us for a short 10-minute break with music by DJ B Diamond. Also, connect on the social lounge with like-minded attendees and post on social media using the hashtag SIPCon2023. So again, thank you everyone for attending, and especially thank you for all of our presenters.